I was spending my Saturday afternoon in Willow Creek Park, sitting on a bench with my newspaper, when I witnessed something that still gets my blood boiling. The weather was perfect, sunny with a light breeze, and families were scattered throughout the park, kids playing on the jungle gym, teens hanging by the fountain, and adults walking their dogs or chatting in small groups. It was the kind of idyllic community scene you'd want in our suburban neighborhood. That's when I saw Maya and her friends. Maya is my neighbor's daughter, a smart 16-year-old who babysits for local families. She and three friends were sitting at a picnic table near the big fountain, laughing and taking selfies. They were dressed like typical teens on a warm day, Maya in a modest crop top and knee-length skirt that was perfectly appropriate to the weather. Nothing scandalous, nothing that would raise an eyebrow in any reasonable person's mind. But then I saw her Barbara Whitmore, our HOA president, though everybody in the neighborhood refers to her as Karen. Behind her back, she was power walking through the park in her immaculate white tennis outfit, clipboard in hand, no doubt, on the lookout for offenses to note. I swear that woman exists to find fault. Last month, she left a notice on my door because my garbage can was at the curb for approximately 4 hours and 17 minutes after pickup. Yes, she actually specified the exact time I watched as Karen slowed her pace, her hawk-like eyes zeroing in on Maya and her friends. She cocked her head, pursed her lips, and altered course, making a beeline for the teens. I put my newspaper aside. Karen's style of community standards enforcement tended to create more problems than it solved, and I had a bad feeling. This wasn't going to go well. "Excuse me, young ladies," Karen said, with that sickly, sweet smile she uses right before she's about to ruin someone's day. "I'm Barbara Whitmore, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Are you all members of this community?" She was looking her up and down, her disapproving eyes lingering on Maya's outfit. Maya, always polite, responded, "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore, I live on Maple Street with my parents." Karen's eyebrows shot up so high they were in danger of disappearing into her hairline. "Well, then you should certainly know better. That outfit is totally inappropriate for our community park. We have standards here. You know, there are children around." I looked around. No one else was paying any attention to the teenager's outfit. Several of the mothers standing nearby were wearing the same crop tops with their yoga pants. This was obviously just Karen on another power trip. Mia's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Maya spoke calmly. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Mrs. Whitmore, but there's no dress code for the park. We're just hanging out and not bothering anyone." That's when Karen began circling the picnic table like a shark that had scented blood in the water. "This is exactly what's wrong with your generation. No respect for community values or decency. Do your parents know you're out in public dressed like that?" Her voice was growing louder, and people were starting to stare. The other teenagers began gathering their things, clearly wanting to get away from the confrontation. But Maya stood her ground. "Mrs. Whitmore, we're not breaking any rules. Could you please leave us alone? You're making my friends uncomfortable." Karen's face was an alarming shade of red. "Don't you dare tell me what to do. Young lady, I've been president of this HOA for 7 years, and I know what's best for this community. That outfit is disruptive and inappropriate." By this point, a small crowd had gathered. Several people had their phones out, recording the confrontation. I stood up from my bench and started walking toward them, concerned about how quickly this was escalating. Karen was now standing over Maya, jabbing her finger in the air, mere inches from the teenager's face. "You need to cover up or leave this park immediately," Karen demanded, her voice ringing across the lawn. "Your parents should be ashamed." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained calm. "Please stop yelling at me. I have every right to be here." What happened next took place so quickly that it took everyone a moment to react. Karen lunged forward, grabbed Ma's skirt with both hands and yanked it downward, leaving the teen's underwear exposed to everyone in the area there. "Maybe next time you'll think twice about wearing something so provocative." The crowd collectively gasped. Maya screamed in shock and humiliation, desperately pulling her skirt back up as tears streamed down her face. Her friends rushed to her side, forming a protective circle around her. "What is wrong with you?" shrieked a mother who had been watching from a short distance. "She's a child." I happened on the scene just as several people were dialing 911 on their phones. "Ma'am, you need to step away from her right now," I said to Karen firmly. Inserting myself between her and the teenagers, Karen looked startled for a moment by the reaction her actions had caused, but she quickly retreated to self-righteousness. "I was just showing why that skirt is not appropriate. As HOA president, it's my responsibility to enforce community standards. What you just did is assault." I said, my voice low, but even, and there are a dozen or more witnesses with video to back me up. For the first time, uncertainty creased Karen's face as she looked around and noticed all the phones pointed in her direction. Still, she doubled down. "You don't understand. These girls are setting a terrible example. The HOA laws clearly state the HOA has no authority to physically assault minors, regardless of what they're wearing," interrupted another park-goer, a woman who I recognized as a local attorney, "and what you just did could potentially be classified as a sex crime against a minor." That statement seemed to pierce through Karen's bubble of self-importance. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out in the distance. Police sirens wailed, growing louder as they approached the park. 2 police cars pulled up to the park entrance. Within minutes, 4 officers approached our group, and people immediately began pointing at Karen and speaking over each other to explain what had happened. "One at a time, please," the lead officer said. Holding up her hands, she turned to Maya, who was still trembling and crying softly. "Are you all right, sweetheart? Can you tell me what happened?" Maya nodded, and with remarkable composure for someone who had just been publicly humiliated, recounted the incident. Her friends corroborated her story, as did at least 10 other witnesses. Several people stepped forward with their phones offering video evidence. When it was Karen's turn to speak, she somehow managed to make things worse for herself. "Officer, I was simply enforcing community standards. These girls were dressed inappropriately as HOA president. It's my duty to the officer." Cut her off. "Ma'am, HOA presidents have no legal authority to touch anyone, much less pull down a minor's clothing. In public, turn around, please, and put your hands behind your back." The look of shock on Karen's face was almost comical. "You're arresting me? This is outrageous. Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am. You've made that quite clear," the officer replied dryly as she placed handcuffs on Karen's wrists. "Barbara Whitmore, you're under arrest for assault and public indecency. You have the right to remain silent." As the police led Karen toward the patrol car, she twisted her head back toward the crowd. "The HOA board will hear about this. They'll back me up. This girl was violating community standards. No one was listening anymore." The focus had shifted entirely to Maya, who was being comforted by her friends and strangers alike. An older woman had draped a light cardigan around her shoulders, and people were offering kind words and support. I later learned that Karen's arrest was just the beginning of her troubles. The incident had been captured on multiple phones and quickly went viral on social media. 3 days later, an emergency meeting of the HOA board was called and Karen was unanimously voted out of her position as president. She was formally charged with assault of a minor and public indecency, facing up to 2 years in prison and fines exceeding $10,000. When Karen heard the charges and potential penalties during her arraignment, she collapsed into her chair, mouth agape, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. "But I was just enforcing the rules," she whispered as the baif led her